Hello everyone, my name is Jason. Welcome to the English Podcast Library English channel. This channel is designed to help English learners improve their listening, speaking, and thinking skills through simple, clear, and practical lessons. Each episode focuses on useful strategies, real-life topics, and motivating tips that make learning English easier and more enjoyable. In today's episode, we'll talk about one of the most important steps to change the direction of my life. Instead of translating from your first language, you'll discover how to train your mind to process words and ideas directly in English. This will make your speaking faster, your listening sharper, and your confidence much stronger. Today I want to share a story that changed the direction of my life. It's a simple story, but a powerful one. It's about how learning English opened a door I thought would always be locked, and how that one decision pulled me closer to my dream, my passion, and the life I wanted. If you have big goals, whether you want to become a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, an entrepreneur, or something else that matters, then take this seriously. English is not a small detail. It's a core skill you will need. Again and again. In today's world, it's the language of travel, of business, and of the internet. More than 1.5 billion people use it to communicate. If you can speak it well, the world feels closer. If you can't, important chances can pass right by you. Think about the things you want. A better job, a scholarship or a place at a top university, new friends from different countries, films, books, and lectures in their original voice. The ability to express yourself clearly in meetings. English sits in the middle of all of that. But don't let this scare you. You can start today. Anyone can join this global conversation. And I'm here to tell you that if I did it, you can as well. My name is Maya and I'm from Brazil. I grew up in a small town where everybody knew each other. My parents worked hard. We weren't poor, but we didn't have extra money for luxuries. My father, Paulo, drove a taxi. My mother, Elena, taught at a local school. They repeated the same message to me throughout my childhood. Education is the key that opens the big doors. I listened and I believed them. And I had one dream that never changed. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be the kind of person who walks into a room full of fear and replaces it with calm. That dream began the day my little brother, Lucas, got very sick. His fever was high, his breathing was fast, and my parents were terrified. We spent hours in a hospital waiting room with that cold white light and the smell of disinfectant. A doctor finally came to see us. He moved with quiet confidence, like he had walked this road many times. He checked Lucas carefully, explained everything in simple words, and gave him medicine. A few hours later, the fever dropped. Relief rushed into our family like fresh air. I watched that doctor and thought, that's what I want to do with my life. Walk into a crisis and help bring someone back to safety. As I got older, I learned a hard truth. Medicine doesn't live only in hospitals and clinics. It lives in textbooks, lectures, research papers, and international conferences. And most of those are in English. Even in Brazil, the doctors I admired used English to study new research, communicate with specialists, and keep learning. I had the heart for medicine, but my English was weak. In my public school, English lessons were basic and short. I could say, hello, thank you, and how are you? But the moment I saw a long sentence, my mind froze. I remember a day in class when my English teacher, Miss Carter, asked me to read a sentence aloud. The letters seemed to dance across the page. My face got hot. I whispered, I don't know. Someone laughed. I kept my eyes on the desk and wished the floor would open up and swallow me. That afternoon, I went home and shut the door to my room. I sat on the edge of the bed and asked myself the question that had been growing inside me. How am I going to become a doctor if I can't even read a paragraph in English? That evening, my father came home tired from a long day of driving. He sat down beside me and said, Maya, what's wrong? You've been quiet for weeks. I told him the truth. I said, I want to be a doctor, but my English is terrible. Without it, I can't study medicine the way I need to." He listened, without interrupting. After a long silence, he said something that changed everything. "If English is the wall, then we have to climb it. Go somewhere. English is everywhere. Put yourself in the language." I stayed at him. We did not have extra money. We were comfortable only because my parents stretched every coin. "Papa," I said, "we can't afford that." He looked at me and said, "We don't have much, but we have enough to back your dream. We will make it work." We began to plan. We compared choices. We talked to friends of friends who had studied abroad. We read about schools and cities. We chose Canada for 4 reasons. First, I would hear English all day, every day, which meant I would have to practice. Second, the schools had a good reputation. Third, people from many countries live there, so I wouldn't feel like the only newcomer. Fourth, while nothing about studying abroad is cheap, Canada looked more realistic for our family than other options. My parents used almost all of their savings to pay for my flight, my first months of rent, and my language school. On the night before I left, my mother held my hands and said, "We're giving you everything we can. Promise, you won't give up." I promised with tears in my eyes. Mitty arrived in Toronto with one suitcase, a folder of documents, and a head full of worry. The weather felt like it wanted to bite my skin. In my town in Brazil, the air is warm, even in winter. In Toronto, my fingers went numb inside my gloves. The food was new to me. I missed the taste of my mother's rice and beans more than I expected. People were kind, but they spoke quickly, and when they used slang, my brain couldn't keep up. At the airport, a man asked, "Do you need a taxi?" I froze. I heard the words, but I didn't understand the sound as a sentence. I smiled, nodded, and answered, "Yes." Then he asked, "Where to?" I didn't catch it. My mind went empty. I finally handed him my phone, with the address written on the screen. That night, alone in a small rented room, I cried quietly. I thought, what have I done? How will I survive if I can't even handle a simple question? The next morning, I started language school. Our teacher welcomed us warmly and said we'd begin by introducing ourselves. When my turn came, I stood up and said, "My name, Maya. I'm from Brazil." I wanted to say more about my dream and my family, but the words stuck. A few students smiled kindly, a few whispered to each other. I sat down and felt small. That night, I made a private promise. I will not let embarrassment decide my future. I will keep going, no matter how slow it feels. Those first weeks were strange and tiring. Everything looked and sounded different. In Brazil, school uniforms were normal. In Toronto, kids wore anything they wanted, even pajamas, and nobody cared. In Brazil, we hugged and stood close. In Toronto, people gave each other personal space, and even a friendly hug needed an invitation. The weather changed like a quick mood. Sun, rain, snow, sometimes, all in one day. In grocery stores, I used a self-checkout machine for the first time and felt like everyone could see I didn't know what I was doing. People said sorry constantly, even when I bumped into them. I ordered a small meal and got enough food for two. But the hardest part wasn't any of that. The hardest part was the speed of English and the way people dropped words, shortened phrases, and filled their speech with expressions I'd never seen in a textbook. Want to grab a coffee meant, "Would you like to get a coffee with me?" I'm down meant I agree. That's wild. Well, that's insane meant that's amazing. In class, I could understand the grammar, but on the street, I felt like a beginner again. Miss Carter pulled me aside after a writing exercise and said, "Maya, your ideas are strong, but your sentences sound translated. You're thinking in Portuguese first and then moving to English. That's why it feels unnatural." She was right. When someone asked me a question, I would hear the words in English, translate them to Portuguese, think of my reply in Portuguese, and try to push it back into English. By the time I was ready to speak, the moment had already passed. I kept wondering, will I ever be fluent? Will I ever speak? Without faith, I built a plan made of small daily actions. My first trick was simple. I put on headphones, walked around the city, and pretended to be on a phone call. I wasn't talking to anyone. I was talking to myself in English. I described what I saw. I'm walking past a bakery. It's pretty long. She laughed. I swear I do this every day. I said, I just moved here, so I'm still getting used to it. She asked where I was from. I asked where she worked. Her name was Emma. We talked for 3 minutes about coffee, the neighborhood, and how to survive winter. It wasn't complicated, but it was real. No translation, no hiding. I left with my cappuccino and a new kind of confidence. Once I felt braver, I worked on pronunciation and rhythm with a technique called shadowing. I watched a show or short video, paused after a sentence and repeated it exactly like the speaker. Tone, speed, emotion. If the actor said, "Oh my God, that's incredible," I practiced until my version sounded close. At first, it felt awkward. After a few weeks, I could hear the difference. Words connected more smoothly. My sentences had better music. I kept a mistake notebook, too. If I caught myself saying, "I'm agree," I wrote the correct form. I agree. Seeing the error next to the fix helped stop the habit. I also pushed myself to meet people. I joined free events for international students. I used language exchange apps and found Canadians who wanted to practice Portuguese while I practice English. At work, I asked coworkers simple questions. How was your weekend? What are you studying? And listened carefully. The more I practiced, the more natural I sounded and the less afraid I felt. Life stayed hard. I was often tired. I counted coins before buying groceries. I missed birthdays and family gatherings. One afternoon, I checked my bank app and saw $5 left. I closed my eyes and let the fear rise, then let it pass. I told myself, you did not come this far to quit now. You will find a way. Step by step, I did. I kept picturing my brother safe in that hospital bed, the calm doctor, my parents at the kitchen table, the future patients I hoped to help. Those images pushed me forward when my feet felt heavy. With my English growing stronger, I focused on the next gate, the IELTS exam. To enter a good medical program, I needed a strong score. The test scared me. The dense reading passages, the pressure of the speaking interview, the precision required in writing. I made a plan. Academic vocabulary every morning, speaking, answers recorded and reviewed. Even when I hated hearing my mistakes, practice. Essays with weak phrases cut and clean ones added. Medical articles to train my brain for heavy text. On exam day, my hands were cold and my heart was loud. But I whispered, Maya, you've worked for this. Trust your preparation. I walked in, focused on one task at a time, and did my best. A week later, I opened the results with shaking fingers. I had passed. I put the paper on my bed and cried, not for the number itself, but for what it represented. Months of steady practice, hundreds of small decisions to keep going, and the belief that I could rewrite my story. That score opened the door to the medical program I had dreamed about. I felt grateful, determined, and ready for the harder road ahead. Medical school felt like being dropped into deep water and told to swim. Professors spoke clearly, but the content was dense. Anatomy labs moved fast. Lectures came with long lists of medical terms that looked like puzzles. The textbooks were heavy in every sense. Diagrams, Latin roots, precise language. I had learned conversational English, then academic English for IELTS. Now I had to learn medical English, a language inside the language. At first, my notes looked like a storm of arrows and underlines. I tried to write down everything and ended up understanding very little. Panic would have been easy. I chose a different approach. Simplify, organize, repeat. I broke my days into blocks. Mornings for lectures and labs. Afternoons for review and questions. Evenings for targeted language work. Pronouncing medical terms, summarizing articles in my own words, and building flashcards by hand. I recorded lectures and listened again while cooking or on the bus, pausing to repeat key terms out loud until they came out naturally. I built a small dictionary of case presentation phrases. The patient is a 40-year-old female presenting with. The differential diagnosis includes our plan is English was still my tool, but now it was a surgical tool. I needed precision. In study groups, I learned to speak up without apologizing for my accent. At first, I hesitated, worried someone would interrupt with corrections. But the more I contributed, the more I saw that clarity matters more than perfection. Simple, direct sentences worked. Emphasizing important words helped. When I didn't know a term, I described the idea and asked, "What's the exact term?" I wrote the right term with a star and practiced it 3 times. Whisper, normal voice, confident voice. My first clinical rotation showed me what language can do in a hospital. An older man, Mr. H, arrived with chest pain, voice shaking, eyes full of fear. I stood at the foot of the bed and said, clearly and calmly, "You're safe here. We're going to take care of you. We're doing tests now to understand what's happening." His shoulders loosened. That moment taught me something. Language in medicine is more than vocabulary. It's a bridge to trust. It can calm a storm. Money was tight through those years. I took extra cafe shifts when classes allowed, cooked large pots of simple food on Sundays, froze portions in labeled containers, and said no to most expensive plans. Some weeks life felt like lectures, patience, bus rides, and dictionaries on repeat. Inside that routine, a quiet pride grew. I wasn't waiting for motivation. I was building it by showing up. There were harder moments. The first time a patient died during a rotation, I walked home in silence. I thought about the family, about the way the attending spoke. Slowly, carefully, and how he paused to let them breathe. As a doctor, your language is as important as your hands. You can't remove all pain, but you can protect people from careless words. You can choose clarity over confusion and kindness over speed. I kept shadowing this time with recorded medical presentations, pausing, repeating, matching cadence, rehearsing case structures, chief complaint, history of present illness, pertinent positives and negatives, assessment, plan. At first, I sounded like I was reading. Slowly, I sounded like myself. Graduation came like a bright doorway. Families filled the hall with flowers, photos, and laughter. When they called my name, Dr. Maya Alves, I crossed the stage and took my diploma with both hands. I thought of my mother's words, "Promise you won't give up." I had kept my promise. After the ceremony, I called home. My father wiped his eyes. My mother said she always knew. Lucas shouted, "Dr. Maya," and we all laughed because sometimes joy makes you young again. My first job was at a large hospital in Toronto. On my first morning, I woke before sunrise just to walk the halls and feel the rhythm of the place. Nurses moved with practiced grace. Monitors hummed softly. The smell of coffee mixed with antiseptic. I found my locker and stood with my hands on the door for a moment, steadying my breath. I was here not as a student but as a physician. The first month was a whirlwind. Electronic records, supply closets. Which elevator was fastest? How to write notes that were both clear and concise. Most of all, I learned to speak to patients with accuracy and comfort in the same sentence. The English that once scared me now helped me study other people. Language sharpened by years of practice became a tool I could trust. One evening, a little girl came in, feverish and afraid. Her mother even more afraid than she was. I knelt to the child's eye level and said, "Hi, I'm Dr. Maya. You're safe with us. We'll take this step by step." I explained to the mother exactly what we would do and why, keeping my sentences clean and my tone warm. The girl relaxed enough to smile at a sticker. The mother's eyes filled with tears, not because of a complicated procedure, but because of how I spoke. Languages care. When my first salary arrived, I stared at the number. It was more than I used to earn in a year back home. I didn't rush to buy anything. I paid bills, sent money to my parents, and saved the rest. Later, I rented a brighter apartment with a small balcony, close to work. Some mornings I sit there with coffee and watch the sunrise paint the city. I think about counting coins for groceries. The day I had $5 in my account, the list with half the items crossed out. The number in the bank matters less than what it represents. The slow, steady power of small, repeated actions. Over time, something shifted inside me. The fear that used to walk beside me in English conversations fell behind. I still made mistakes, and I still corrected them. But I no longer felt like a visitor in my own sentences. This was my life in this language, in this city. I bought a small second-hand car for late-night shifts, not to impress anyone, but to arrive warm and ready. I cooked Brazilian dishes for friends and co-workers. They taught me new idioms over dinner. Language kept growing, and so did I. People asked what was the turning point, the one big moment that changed everything. There wasn't just one. There were many, small ones. Choosing to speak to the barista, turning off subtitles, shadowing a sentence 10 times, asking a classmate to repeat a word without shame, listening to a lecture again when I was tired, rewriting a paragraph until it was clean. These don't look dramatic, but they add up. They build a person who can walk into a room and say, "Good morning, I'm your doctor." With a steady voice, you'll hear advice to accept yourself as you are. That can be kind if it means you deserve respect at every stage. But sometimes it becomes permission to stay small. I don't believe in staying small. I believe in growing quietly, steadily, not for applause, but for the life you want to live and the people you want to help. On my hardest days, I refused to say this is enough. I said, this is a starting point. That mindset matters. If you're still with me, here's a simple plan you can use whether your dream is medicine, business, teaching, engineering, design, whatever calls you. First, build a daily English habit. Even if it's 15 minutes, pick a time and protect it. Second, speak out loud, not just in your head. Narrate your world with that headphone trick. Third, collect phrases. Not only single words, because we speak in phrases. Learn them as units. Fourth, accept embarrassment as part of the process. If you never feel awkward, you're not pushing far enough. Fifth, track small wins. Write them down. I ordered food without freezing. I asked a stranger for directions. I explained a story to a friend. These notes will carry you through the quiet days when progress is hard to see. Keep a mistake log. One page where you write errors you catch yourself making. Next to each, write the clean version. Say it 3 times out loud. The brain loves repetition. It turns effort into instinct. On days off, I sometimes walk a path around a quiet lake at the edge of the city. I sit on a bench where the trees open and the water reflects the sky. I think about a girl in Brazil who couldn't read a simple sentence without shaking. I think about the first winter I almost gave up. I think about the little girl in the hospital whose hand I held while I listened to her breathing. And I think about the person I am now. Not perfect, not finished, but steady. Transformation isn't magic. It's mornings and evenings, pages and conversations, mistakes and corrections. It's choosing to be a little braver than yesterday. People sometimes ask me for the secret. There is no secret, only a question. How much do you want this? If you truly want it, you'll trade comfort for growth. You'll switch your phone to English and leave it there. You'll choose the long way, speaking to real people, when the short way is staying silent. You'll read the paragraph again. You'll practice the sentence again. You'll swallow your pride and ask, can you say that slower? The world meets you halfway after you take the first steps. Today, my life looks different from the one I imagined as a child. Yet, it holds the same center to help I live in a bright apartment in downtown Toronto. In the early morning, the city glows like a promise. I make coffee, call my parents, send Lucas pictures of the snow, and head to the hospital. I drive a car I once kept as a photo on my phone. I save for the future and send money home because it makes me happy to honor the people who started me on this path. On some weekends, I travel to a nearby town, to a national park, or to another country when I can. I still carry a small notebook. Old habit, new entries. Most importantly, English is no longer the thing that blocks me. It's the thing that carries me. It's how I comfort a patient, how I collaborate with a team, how I present a plan with confidence. It's how I read research that can save time and sometimes save lives. I used to think of English as a wall. Now I see it as a bridge I can cross, back and forth to reach people where they are. If you feel stuck, if your sentences come out tangled, if your fear is louder than your voice, hear me. You are not behind. You are not late. You are standing at the beginning of your next chapter. You don't need permission to start. You don't need perfect conditions. You need one small action today. Speak one sentence out loud. Watch a short video without subtitles and catch 3 phrases. Change your phone language. Write 5 lines about your day in clean English. Repeat tomorrow. Repeat again. Then keep going when it gets boring. That's the difference between a wish and a plan. You may be waiting for someone to rescue you. I say this with love. No one is coming to do it for you. Not your parents, not your teachers, not a friend or partner. They can support you and their support matters. But the action is yours. The habit is yours. The voice is yours. Take responsibility for it. And you will be surprised how far you travel in 1 year, in 3, in 5. One day, you will wake up, look around and realize you have built a life your younger self would be proud of. So I'll end with the same choice I gave myself many times. You have 2 options. 1. Close this video and do nothing. Keep your life exactly as it is. Keep telling yourself you'll start tomorrow. Keep hoping for results without building the habits that create them. 2. Start now. Not next week, not after a special course, not when you feel ready. Begin today with what you have. 15 minutes of practice, 1 real conversation, 1 page of notes, 1 brave request. Can you repeat that? Choose option 2, and you'll feel the world shift. Doors will appear that you couldn't see before. Your voice will grow steady. And when an opportunity comes, a job, an interview, a scholarship, you'll step forward and say in clear English, I can do this. If you're ready to walk that path with me, join this community. Subscribe, leave a like, and tell me one small action you'll take today. I'll read your comments. I'll cheer for you. And I promise when you invest in your English, you invest in your future self. The one who stands taller, chooses clearer words, and moves through the world with calm. That version of you is already waiting on the other side of a few brave choices. Start now. Speak 1 sentence. Learn 1 phrase. Make 1 call. Then repeat and repeat again. That is how we change our lives. 1 clear line, 1 steady step at a time.